Starfield is not like No Man's Sky, it's an RPG. This type of rhetoric I've been getting every time I seem to mention these two games in particular together. And you know, they're right. Comparisons drawn immediately with No Man's Sky and other space sim games, be it Star Citizen, X4, Elite Dangerous, are, well, easy. But how true are they? Well, as somebody who's been part of space sim communities, I'll try to take a look into this matter and see how true this sort of a statement actually is. Alright, if you need a refresher course for the Starfield or Star Citizen, Elite Dangerous or X4, hell, the whole space sim genre, well, I'll link down below some useful stuff. But today, let's start with the Starfield itself. If you've ever played Bethesda developed game, well, considering that Skyrim is like the gaming syphilis that won't go away, it's hard to believe that anyone watching right now hasn't touched at least one of their games. You'll know that Bethesda has a special style when it comes to delivering their games. There's always three most notable key aspects with every single one of them. Great open worlds with rich lore, shit main story like the levels of The Room, and every single one of their games are as broken as their credibility in public side today. So then, if all Bethesda games have all these characteristics, so it's kinda safe to assume that Starfield will have the same. A stupid, pointless main story, which is, about seeing what's out there, but with a genuinely engrossing open world wrapped around it. And this we already know, in a typical traditional RPG games, the character you make will gain perks, level ups, and depending on the stats and backgrounds, you'll fumble through the conversations, succeeding or failing and dealing with the outcomes. So then, yes, it's not like the space sims that I mentioned previously, but then it does not exclude them either. You see, it's become synonymous to say RPG games and expect the game to have characters, stat points, leveling systems. But in reality, RPG just means an acronym for role-playing game. And much like the all-encompassing bastardized term of action game, it can be applied to more than just that. More than just games that have stats or leveling. Elite Dangerous, a game where you have no stats nor leveling, a lot of simulation of various things. It's, well, at least by developers, still considered as the role-playing game. And an MMO as well, where you roleplay as a space pilot that randomly gets a pilot's license, probably out of a bingo parlor, but regardless. And the game just lets you explore the open world without having any story nor quests, as much as it's a massive detriment to the whole game. While Star Citizen, and more so Squadron 42, the single-player campaign portion, will more likely be akin to Chris Roberts' Wing Commander, since the man these days can't seem to have too many original ideas anymore. And No Man's Sky, the game that many compared Starfield to the most, also has its own roleplay aspect too. Sure, it's very hollow with the basic sci-fi themes as a story, but similar to Elite Dangerous, you're just there, do whatever, but with maybe some quests. So, no, just idiotically yelling that Starfield is somehow special because it's an RPG is, well, idiotic. Sure, it will have deeper story presentation than typical space sims usually have, that's certainly true, but that does not exclude them from comparison either. If nothing else, it can show how it's done right, or at least half right, knowing Bethesda. And similarly, Starfield, though focusing on story more, won't be excluded from being a space simulator, if only a simplistic one. See, No Man's Sky already is a rather simplistic game when it comes to simulating the galaxy, and while it is a rather massive one with millions of star systems, a lot of it is, well, very static. While on the other hand, Star Citizen still has one star system after 10 fucking years! Well, it's supposed to have about 100 systems when it's done, yet it does put in effort in simulating markets and other in-depth ship and character mechanics. So clearly the size is not everything, nor does it require super specific specification. Simulators are, well, somewhat loose term too, but Starfield certainly will apply to some degree if nothing else, even if it's just by simulating the environment and physics of celestial bodies and the open world. Now let's be frank, only turbo nerds really care about this classification so hard, so I guess I'll see how many of these we can spot in the comments. It's still pretty funny seeing it's not a space sim, it's an RPG excuses from the Bethesda stands, so hopefully this sheds some light. And maybe we can drop for a moment the genre specificity and have some fun comparing our space toys. Remember, most games attempt to do something unique from the others, be it making the biggest, bestest, deepest aspects they see most important. But no matter what it is, recognizing these things and learning how they differ can be a cool learning moment. So don't just dismiss these things because of your likes or dislikes. Expanding one's perspective only is a good thing, after all.